12:01 on Two Guys and a Goalie. What's going on, everybody? Thank you very much for being here. We live for days like this. We live for days like this. The Edmonton Oilers have made a trade, and we're going to get into it as we work our way through Two Guys and a Goalie today. If you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, of course, you can text us 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Two Guys and a Goalie, as always, brought to you by our great partners, Sandman and his crew over at GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork, and now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca and click Ready to Work, or visit their page at Indeed.ca. And with the Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it is a career. All right, so we are off and rolling today. I do believe we have the sound going. Hernan, nice fix on that one. And Two Guys and Goalie brought to you by GS Construction. Thank you very much for being here today. If you're watching over on YouTube, hammer the thumbs up for us. The Edmonton Oilers making a trade. If you are just joining us over the lunch hour and you weren't on the lock shop earlier when this broke, this is how the trade goes for the Oilers. Boston Bruins trade Trent Frederick and 50% of salary retained to New Jersey in exchange for unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser. New Jersey then trades Trent Frederick with 50% retained to Edmonton in exchange for unsigned draft choice Shane LaChance. So the Oilers get Frederick at 25% of his cap hit. Boston trades Max Jones and unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser to Edmonton in exchange for Max Warner, a St. Louis second-round pick in 2025, and Edmonton's own fourth. So it's a second, a fourth, Warner, and LaChance for Frederick, Max Jones, and unsigned Peter Hauser. LaChance at this point was also unsigned as well. So we've got lots to discuss here. Gage, your initial thoughts on this deal, man?
Wasn't Peter Hauser the bad guy in RoboCop?
Is that what his name was?
I don't know.
You know what? It lost in all this. I haven't even looked up who Peter Hauser is yet.
Okay. I think it's Hauser first. Is it Hauser? Anyway. Yeah, sure. Order the rings. Let's plot the path down Jasper for the parade, I guess.
He's ready to go.
I guess this is it, man.
I think the biggest vote of confidence for this deal came from Huss when we brought him on the lock shop. I said, the Oilers have acquired Trent Frederick. He goes, I hate that guy. I said, why? Yeah. He goes, well, in a blowout this year, he jumped David Gustafsson, and Gustafsson doesn't frighten. Frederick's got, as much of a little resume you can have in the NHL nowadays. And he's like, so he's public enemy number one. Cass, I like hearing the Oilers just acquired somebody that another fan base hates, Yeah,
a little bit of hate goes a long way.
Cass,
we talked about priorities for Edmonton.
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead, Cass.
Does my sound good?
No, you're good. We had a bit of an echo, but it's good.
Yeah, we talk about priorities for Edmonton, and still that top four defenseman would be spectacular to pick up. But we all knew they needed to get a little bit heavier and a little bit more nasty in their bottom six. We all knew that. We've been talking about it for a while, like a little bit more sandpaper down there, because if you're not scoring goals, you got to be hard to play against. And yes, you can play fast, but you needed a little bit of nasty. And I love this pickup. You get some size, you get some physicality, and as you said, Dusty, you get a little bit of hate. You get a little bit of hate because teams and other fan bases, they hate playing against Connor McDavid. They hate playing against Leon Draisaitl because they're so skilled and they're the best players in the world. But there's no one where it's just like, I just want to slash Connor McDavid in the face because he's so good, right? But Frederick brings in that we might want to slash him in the face because he's so bloody annoying and he drives us crazy and he might jump one of our guys. And having to rely on Corey Perry as the guy that's going to spark you if you're playing down, if your energy is not there, if your bench is quiet, if people aren't involved or engaged in the game, it's a lot to ask of Corey Perry. And so you guys, this is a great pickup for me in the bottom six. Wasn't overly expensive. You get size, you get some nasty, and it's good. I like it a lot.
Now it's interesting because there's been some different things to discuss here with Frederick, because Chris Johnston, who joins us on Friday mornings on the Nielson show, did tweet out shortly after this deal. And here's the exact tweet 53 minutes ago now. An interesting wrinkle to the Oilers' acquisition of Trent Frederick. At this point, there's no indication that he'll be healthy enough to play before the playoffs. So there's a chance that he could remain on the LTIR for the balance of the season, which then had people asking, okay, well, if he's going to be on the LTIR for the balance of the season, why are you even using New Jersey to retain, an extra 25%? So I'm assuming that they're hoping that they can see him play here before the playoffs and try to figure out where he fits in, Gager.
Well, you want to. You have to, like a guy jumping in game 83 on a new line with new line mates. They don't to build some sort of camaraderie, chemistry, whatever, however you want to call it. That's dangerous to me. To having a science experiment go at the most important time. There must be some chance that he is ready before, so they can the coaching staff can try to find a place where he might fit in the lineup. Maybe it's not in the bottom six, and maybe it's in the top six. Who knows? But just to have a little bit more of a runway to see where this guy is most effective instead of trying to find it at that time in a series. It's puzzling to me to trade for a guy that could possibly be on LTIR, or maybe they're just they're cooking up something big here and they've factored in all this extra space and there's something else coming.
Cass, the fourth line tonight is projected to be, and here's a line combination for tonight, everybody. Oilers and Ducks tonight. Pregame show at 6 o'clock. GCL Diesel pregame show with Tommy Gazzola at 6. McDavid between Hyman and Nuge. Draisaitl with Savoy and Arvidsson. Henrique with Brown and Janmark. Right now, it's Kasperi Kapanen, I guess, centering Podkolzin and Corey Perry. Jeff Skinner apparently out tonight. To me, I mean, when you look at that roster right now, Trent Frederick slides in as your fourth line center with Corey Perry. I mean, does he, at least with the way that this roster is currently constructed right now, if you have Perry and Podkolzin who likes to hit, Frederick comes in with like 30 or 40 more hits than Podkolzin, who leads the others in hits because they're a team that just doesn't really hit anything. I mean, Perry, Podkolzin, and Frederick could be a little bit of a-hole line, really.
Well, that's what I love about it. Is like now you have a whole line you could throw together that's like, hey, if we're out of this thing, like emotionally, not necessarily from a score standpoint, but like if we're not having a game and we're struggling, start that line. Like you have an off night and you play terrible, start that line. You want to send a message about what you're expecting from your team in terms of intensity. Starting that line sends a message immediately. And that's why I love it, is it just gives you a little bit more flex in that bottom six to be able to do something like that. So I'm a fan of it. I know there's the injury and the LTIR, and I get that, but just as a as a concept, if he's going to be healthy at some point, I love having that arrow in your quiver, especially in a playoff series where it's just you're going up against the same guys night in and night out, night in and night out, night in and night out. I love it. So. I like that. Like, Gager, doesn't that sound appetizing? That line, like of Perry, Frederick, and Podkolzin.
On Lock Shop, I suggested if Evander Kane comes back for playoffs, you roll Kane with Frederick and Perry. And that could be even.
That's a rock.
That could be even more.
Yeah.
That's a rock tumbler line, right? That's smoothing everything out.
Yeah. You're going like. You're talking to that line, and you're like, your whole mission. Don't worry about scoring a single goal. Your whole mission is to be a nightmare on the ice to play against.
Yeah, that's playoff time. They're going out there, the extra juice. They're hitting everything that moves. It completely turns the complexity of the game around. The crowd gets into it right away. Yeah, it is appealing to me. And I don't know if it's out there, if it's not available, but I just thought that the main area of focus should have been a defensive structured player, like a
but this didn't cost you anything, Gager. Like it cost you very, very little.
Well, it cost you a second. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair trade for Frederick, to be honest with you.
You obviously didn't see Warner in the rookie game out in Kelowna. He was awesome.
Yeah, but by very middle, I mean like you didn't. And maybe that little, I mean more like cap space little.
Yeah, because they got him at 25%. Yeah, in that, but they have no cap space, right? Like they're right up against it with this Kane situation hanging in the air right now.
But I
Right, which is keeps it dry. So
I was okay with it, but then I heard he might not be ready till playoffs. That's when I was like, really? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you hopefully get a player ready for playoffs? I don't know. Just doesn't,
because then he's on LTIR. You don't use his cap space, and he just helps you just squeam the cap like Dallas is going to do this year and Florida.
Yeah, I guess so.
It'll be interesting to see, like, they're still moving for a defenseman here too, right? Like they got this thing taken care of. It's Tuesday. The deadline is Friday. They got pretty creative with this one, using New Jersey, and they gave up 2 of their top 10 prospects in a second round pick. I mean, they didn't give up nothing. I don't think nothing. Like they moved to. Now, prospects are prospects. We'll see what comes. Warner wasn't having a great season. LeChance is currently unsigned, but I know those in the prospect world do like him. Captain of Boston University, and but there has to be more. Like they can't just say, "Hey, here's Frederick. We're going to roll with Klingberg and Stetcher on the right side with Emberson." Like I don't live in a world where that is an option for this group right now with what this team is.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either, right? Like they still have to do more, but it's an early move. You can get this out of the way. You address the depth issue because those are the 2 issues. And I know most people, or a lot of people, especially in the nasty chat, there's some in there specifically that are like, goaltending's the issue, goaltending's the issue, goaltending's the issue, goaltending's the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is depth forwards playing with a little grit. They took care of it. Now, the biggest issue, which you already mentioned, is still that defensive group, and I still think you have to do something. Like, this was a good first step. It was a good early move. You still got to find a way to bring in someone in that defensive core. You have to. Guys, I would be incredibly disappointed if Stan Bowman wasn't able to do that.
I keep asking myself the question, are the Edmonton Oilers a better team now? And I can't say yes because
from this trade,
well, he's not available yet. Like I don't know what the injury is. This is why I'm perplexed at why you trade for a guy that's injured. And I know there's potential.
Well, they must obviously think he's going to be back in the regular season. I know Chris Johnston says maybe not to the playoffs, but they obviously think he's going to be. He's a UFA. Yeah. Like, he's a rental. It's not like they've got this guy and they're like, oh, you know what, he'll be okay next year. This guy's an unrestricted free agent. He's essentially a rental. So, I mean, I would assume you're not going to. I don't think you give up a second and 2 of your top 10 prospects for a UFA 4th line center if you don't think he's going to play for you in the regular season. That would be.
I know
it's not necessarily ideal. Now, I also don't think he'll be a big ticket to try to keep around if you like him in the playoffs, right? Like,
yeah, and he might like what he sees here too, right? I guess we have to wait and see. I mean, I'm excited to see him play because not excited to run into Stoff though, because I think he mentioned this months ago.
Yeah, but I'm still waiting for Justin Danforth to be acquired. Like, and by the way, scored a big goal in that 95,000 person game. So you got that going for you as well. Yeah, let's get to some of your text messages on this. Then we'll get into the trade watch for Nate here. 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Also over in the on YouTube, if you're watching today, hammer the thumbs up for Two Guys and Goalie. We're already at 41. We should smash through 100. The Lock Shop got to 100, for goodness sakes, today. So we're 59 away over there, and there's almost 300 of you watching. Going to be a big show for you guys today on EST Afternoons as well, as you continue to discuss this Frederick deal. And who knows, maybe something else will be coming down the pipe. Mike in Thunder Bay. Text in at 780-218-9999. Good day, gentlemen. There doesn't seem to be any tariffs on this trade. This Frederick deal seems to be a real win-win for both teams. Nothing to complain about here. Solid value, and he can help Perry provide some grit and jam to the bottom 6. He's pretty much exactly the players the Oilers need now if they can somehow get Carlo out of Boston as well. I feel like if Carlo was coming, maybe it would have been a part of this deal. Like, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Brock is in and says he might not be ready for playoffs. Why did they give up more assets for extra money retained then? Well, I think it's because I think they're probably expecting to play in the regular season here at some point. As Fat Dan is in, Fat with a PH, they don't need to pay for all that salary retention from 2 teams if they don't think he's going to play in the regular season. And Dirk is in and says, I'm with Gager. Does nothing to help them win the division right now. So, this is how trades are.
Yeah, no.
All right, everybody's got an opinion on a trade. Cass, they're like buttholes, right? Isn't that what people say?
It stinks.
Yeah, most of the opinions stink. They're just like buttholes. All right, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999, or you can hit us up over in the nasty chat as well. And lots of thoughts over here. Gordon McDowell says, depending on the kind of injuries coming up, what is the injury? I've been on the air since this happened. I haven't had time to search this out. What is the injury that Frederick's dealing with here? Somebody, I mean, it's got to be out there. Somebody text it or hit us up in the chat. Anyway, he says, depending on the kind of injuries coming off of, this is a good acquisition for the playoffs. You're always rolling the dice with a trade like this. Loomis says, even if we had the cap space, we don't have the assets for acquisition. He's talking about, taking it to the next level. Statue Boss Production says, exactly, Gager. They got a guy as a rental for maybe one round of the playoffs. Well, I mean, I'm curious what the prospect folks think about this. Like those who are big on picks and prospects, and do they think that the cost was the right amount? But Frederick was one of the guys that we'd seen text messages and chats coming in for like a couple of weeks now, being like, "Get that Frederick guy out of Boston. Get that Frederick guy out of Boston." Well, they got him. We'll see when he can play, where he fits in, but he'll definitely be in their bottom six, and even in Boston, where he's been minus 14 this year. He's got some better offensive numbers than some of the other guys that he would be replacing. Here we go. Coyote Steve, thank you for finding this. Frederick has not played since injuring his right ankle in the Bruins' 5-4 overtime loss to the Maple Leafs on February 25th.
Well, that's good.
So that's where it is.
Ankles heal up real nice. Right, Cass?
Let's just hope it's not a high ankle sprain. Those things linger.
Probably
those things linger until the contract expires.
Look, I like it. I know I'm poo-pooing on this a little bit, but I was the first to get really upset the other night when the person to try to get things going for the Edmonton Oilers was Corey Perry. You shouldn't have your 40-year-old having to drop his gloves.
The group. You're like, here we go, 40-year-old fighting.
So now you have someone else, an energy guy that, like you said, Cass, like Huss said, that gets the other team thinking more about him than the actual game itself. So I like that. If you can inject an Evander Kane in there, that is a very potent line of three individuals that will strike the fear of God into certain players around the league. They would not want to play against those guys.
Let's get to this one. Chief Andy over the nasty chat says, it makes no sense to get a player like Frederick, especially when the coach preaches hitting takes out of gameplay. Cass, is this a sign that the Oilers are like, yes, we do need to hit more, because he's got significantly more hits than anybody on this current roster?
Yeah. Well, I mean, aren't they last in the league?
Yes,
in hits?
They are.
And you want to be in the bottom half, because generally when you have the puck, you're not hitting people.
Yeah, you don't want to be number one on that list, right?
No, you don't want to be number one on that list, because if you have a lot of hits, it means you don't have the puck as much. I think this is an acknowledgement that there needs to be more physicality, and they need to be harder to play against. Right? They have to be. I saw it and have been talking about it. You guys saw it and have talked about it. I think everyone has seen that, and they're seeing it too. So yes, it's an acknowledgement of that. Now you don't necessarily want running around to generate hits for hits' sake, like just to get it on the stats sheet, just to have it on the stats line. You want it to be with purpose. But every once in a while, you need someone that might take a donkey run, because maybe your team's quiet, maybe your team's not energized. Maybe you're in the middle of a slump, and you need someone to be a slump buster, to do something to pull other people into the game. And again, outside of Corey Perry being the only one that has the capacity to do that, here's a guy that can't. So I think it's an acknowledgement of that for sure.
Do you know who led the NHL in hits last year as a team?
I'm going to guess Florida.
Yeah, it was Florida. The Stanley Cup champions.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I mean, so they're a good team, but they also hit everything that moves.
That's because of that forecheck too, right? They were.
Yeah, they're forecheck. Yeah,
they were hitting for a purpose. They weren't running around. There was not that everyone else does, but that is it. It's art. It's an art form, that forecheck in the offensive zone with the Florida Panthers.
Eden is in. Lots of questions rolling in here. We'll get to a few of these. Hey, boys, is the second rounder going the other way? The compensation from St. Louis for Broberg. It is a second rounder from St. Louis that is going the other way, and then a fourth rounder as well. JJ says, boys, look up who's number one in hits and who's number one in puck possession. You know what? I tried to look it up. I couldn't find it. I found last year's. JJ, if you want to send me a link, buddy, I'll gladly read that. Cole Harbor Joe is in and says the Oilers are going to be in this cap situation at the deadline every year until McDavid and Draisaitl retire. There will never be prospects coming up. As soon as they show promise, they'll be moved at the deadline. This will be a fluid roster until 2033 in a desperate attempt to win a cup. Empty the tank and the cupboards in this window. We will never have another McDavid and Draisaitl together again. Full send now. So he's totally on board with it. He's just saying this is how it's always going to be. Now with the cap going up significantly over the next 3-4 years, I mean, you hope you're in a little bit of a better spot.
Yeah, and if the Vegas Golden Knights have taught us anything, is look, you can't always look at your prospects as the next future generation of your team. They're assets. Everything's an asset, and the ability to retool on the fly and stay competitive, I think in certain fan bases allow you to have more time because maybe they're a little bit more knowledgeable. But you go to certain markets, I think in the U.S., if you're not winning, you're not filling seats. So there's internal pressure for management to stay competitive longer. But yeah, I'm a fan of it. Seeing the lulls of teams that are going through the process of rebuilding. Look down south, like we thought Calgary was going to be okay, but I think we're all pretty surprised of where they're at and their ability to just use what they have and use internal pieces and stay competitive. I think that's a really good job that Craig Conroy has done with that team. That's how I think a GM should actually look at his team.
It's Nielson, it's Cass, and Gager. If you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, please send the link to EST to your friends. We're going to have obviously a ton of deadline coverage between now and Friday. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. We are cruising along well above 300 live viewers over there, and we are 37 away from changing 100 today. Let's get into the Trade Watch segment. Take your career to the next level with Nate's Construction Leadership and Supervision Program, a perfect tool for professionals looking to advance their role or an organization needing to develop leaders. For more information and to register, visit nate.ca/CLSP. That's nate.ca/CLSP to take your career to another level. I got to get Sandwith and this program in the same, like the GS Construction and this segment being here together. It's look, the bottom line is Two Guys and a Goalie is the most popular show in the Edmonton construction scene.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I don't know any other way that you can spin it. One guy we haven't talked about yet here in this trade is Max Jones, who played 7 games for the Bruins this year, has played 38 games now with the Providence Bruins in the American Hockey League. But prior to that, 4 seasons with the Anaheim Ducks, 15 points in 52 games, 19 points in 69 games, minus 21. He was a first-round pick back in 2016. I have not watched, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched Max Jones in a long time, but I remember the book on him being big and probably not quick enough to survive and play the way he needs to play in the National Hockey League. But Cass, it's another guy with NHL experience who could be a big body if need be, if bodies start to fall off come playoff time. He's never played an NHL playoff game, but it's a bigger, I'm not expecting anything from him. Like, I don't even know if he'll play a game, but at least it's another bigger body that if you need to, you can toss into the bottom 6 a little bit in a pinch.
Yeah. And that's why you give up prospects, and going back to the comment of like the win now, empty the cupboards, do whatever you can. They are in that mode. And it's like prospects, you still don't know how those two guys are going to pan out. Right. But Jones, and granted, it's not like he's a top 6 forward in the NHL. It's not like he's going to be a regular for you, but there's some NHL experience and there's pro experience where he is ready to play if you needed him, as you said, in a pinch, which is where it makes sense. And he's clearly the minor part in this deal, right? Where it's not as, he's not a guy that's going to step in and may not have as much of an impact as Frederick does, but he could be a fill-in.
Yeah, he's
if
just
guys
in
get
case.
banged up.
He's
It's a
like a
big
just
body.
in case
Yeah,
throw
he's a
in.
just in case.
Like Boston didn't
Yeah,
want him
it-
anymore. Whatever, take him just in case.
Well, he probably wanted to transition somewhere else too to maybe get more opportunity. So
6'3", 216, 27 years old. Who I'm drawing a blank, guys. Who did Edmonton pick up last year? Kind of a big, strong guy, played fourth line minutes, hit a lot.
Last year?
Last year. Played fourth line. Didn't he come over from Anaheim with Henrique, I want to say?
Oh, Carrick.
Carrick. Right? Is this kind of a Carrick signing?
I don't. I think.
I mean, he can go straight to the minors, right?
Yeah. I don't even know if I'd put him at Carrick's level. Yeah.
Okay. I just don't like. Is that a proper comparison or no? Is like I would assume that once the playoffs start, he would be up here, right?
As an extra body, kind of kicking around, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Where is it here? This is a good. Max Bazuzu says, kind of sounds like a low to medium Jones instead of a Max Jones.
You should have sent that in.
You should have saved that one for the morning, man. You send that in tomorrow morning. You're going to A&W. Simple as that. Like that's somebody's going to try to steal that tomorrow morning. Now I'm gonna have to.
I'm stealing that tomorrow morning.
Mike outside of Edmonton texts in and says Sandwich would call the Nate program a freaking winner. He didn't use the word freaking, but
he doesn't swear much.
Yeah, no, that's so that ties in nicely
Sandy
as
never
well.
Swears either. Never heard him swear. Yeah, never.
I mean, as of this point, I don't view Jones anything more than help for Bayco. And if you need a big body come playoff time to crash and bang a bit, and some bodies are hurt, then maybe you can look at him.
2 more years at $1 million, so whatever, right?
He's got 2 more years?
Or 1 more year.
Max Jones?
Yeah.
All right. But he can be in the American League.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Yeah. Johnny, the accountant, texts in and says the Oilers need to set a minimum 30-30 goal for the rest of the season. 30 shots on goal and 30 hits. This will make them be more aggressive and tougher to play against. And that's coming from a numbers guy, Johnny, the accountant. So you probably have to take
well, the physical play
word
automatically gets ramped up in the playoffs, right?
Just naturally for everybody.
Yeah, like the emotion gets the volume gets turned up on that. I mean, you see Connor McDavid finishing at his checks, right? So
in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's usually a tone setter, isn't it? Like that's what you want to see.
that's I think sometimes he should realize that maybe it's not the big play or dancing a guy or getting a good scoring chance or scoring the goal, setting something up. He goes and finishes a check. Let's face it, when he hits someone going at his speed, 200 pounds, it's like getting hit by a bullet anyway. That can motivate your guys too. There's multiple ways. It's not always just putting offensive points on the board.
The chat is on fire today. Loomis says, so he's the forward version of Josh Brown. It's kind of funny too.
Why are you wasting these?
Shaggy in St. Albert says, now the Oilers just have to trade Savoy for an injured fourth D-man. Shaggy in St. Albert is he's coming unhinged, heading up towards the to the deadline. All right, Coyote Steve says, Dusty, the Oilers needs to stop handing out no movement clauses like candy, especially for mediocre players. And that's the one thing I kind of wanted to get into here on the trade watch, because things are going to be extremely difficult. If they aren't able to use Evander Kane's LTIR space, as Puckpedia is basically laid out and Hart confirmed, we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, not $1 million. We're talking about like very, very much a money in, money out situation. Now, some of this would have just been used up by Frederick, so probably even a little bit less than you were expecting. And when you look at this group up front, there are 7 full no movement clauses. There's Evander Kane, which is now 16-team no trade. Matthias Janmark can only be traded to 22 teams because he's got a 10-team no trade. And then on the back end, Darnell Nurse obviously has a no movement, but you're not moving Ekholm. I don't think you're going to trade Bouchard. Katz, I guess what I'm saying here is because a lot of these no movement clauses on Arvidsson and Henrique and Skinner, there's really not a lot of flexibility in this money in, money out world for the Oilers right now, is there?
No, there's not. And that's one of the things that makes it tricky, right? Like it is, it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility, which is why Evander Kane is probably going to have to see like 8 different doctors because the Edmonton Oilers are going to do everything they can to be like, no, he's too hurt, he can't play yet, to try to squeeze him until the playoffs start, because then it actually gives you cap flexibility, and that's. I got to think that that's going to be part of the approach. And you can call it greasy or unfair or whatever, but that's probably what is going to happen. And yes, you would like them to stop throwing out no movement, no trade clauses, but that's the reality of anyone that signs higher than league minimum. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's okay because I saw Vander Kane today going into the offices of one Dr. Nick Riviera. So should be good for the next little bit. But Dustin,
Go to see Bill Murray in Wild Things.
yeah. We had Sarah Oleski on yesterday.
Yes, you did.
And Sarah pointed out, you know how many no movement clauses the Winnipeg Jets have on their team?
I know how many Florida has because I looked it up, but how many does Winnipeg have?
3.
Okay, let me guess. Shifley.
Yep.
Morrissey.
Yep.
And Hellebuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pillars.
The big guys. Well, that's why I went and looked at Florida.
Yeah.
In Florida, Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Barkov. Mind you, I had a dream last night that Barkov got traded. I just remembered it now. You know how you remember a dream? Yeah. I had a dream last night that Barkov got traded, and actually, it was to Colorado.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know why that just came back to me. Anyway, Barkov, Reinhart, Tkachuk, Jones, who they just got, so they didn't give him that one, and then Forsling, who I think is a pretty damn good defenseman. So they have 4, and then the one that they just traded for. The others have 7 forwards up front, including the 3 guys that they signed this offseason on no movements. It's just, now, Cass, how much is that? I'm not going to sit here and carry the water for OEG and ask that, but how much of that is to get these guys? Because we've been talking so much about, guys want to come to Edmonton, guys want to come to Edmonton. But do they really want to come to Edmonton if they say, I'm only coming if I get a full no move and I get to dictate? Is that it? Did you have to sweeten it, I guess, for these guys with these full no moves?
So, because if you have 2 competing offers, that no move is really nice to have, especially if you got a family, especially if you're a UFA guy where you're like, I want to be in Edmonton and win? Yep, I do. But I don't want to get traded. I don't want to get moved. I don't want to get sent somewhere else. So, I mean, it's not surprising to me that guys would want that because it is something.
But everybody will want that probably, right? Like you could dictate
everybody
that.
Does want it.
Yeah.
And you are, would be interesting. And I saw this somewhere. I'm not going to have time to look for it right now. We'll run air, but the percentage of contracts being signed with no trade or modified no trade clauses has gone up significantly in the last 3 or 4 years. And so I know you name like the Florida Panthers, like I know they have less. I know you name Winnipeg that they have less, but I think the percentage of contracts that have those are going up in general. And so
I think it's because of the Oilers.
Maybe the Oilers thought that they can't request a trade. It was reversed. They had full control of the player.
Now look, I'm looking at Colorado. I just decided. I mean, another high end group. McKinnon, no movement, full no movement. Landeskog, I mean, he's out. Nichushkin has a no movement clause. And Makar. No, and Taves. Makar doesn't even have one. But you're not moving him anyway. I don't think you have to worry about that. I mean, Cale Makar is a no movement clause. Yeah. But then they do have like Arturi Lehkonen has a 12-team. Colton Ross has a no trade clause. Jonathan Drouin has a 9-team no trade list. Miles Woods had a 6. I don't mind the 6-team stuff. 6-team, 19, 10-team.
Guys,
yeah.
Guys, I'm sending you. I just snapped a picture. I pulled it up.
Okay.
I was able to find it. So it was an article on The Athletic by Jeremy Rutherford and Chris Johnson. So this would have been back almost a year ago. So these numbers would have changed this summer. But I'll send you guys because it's got every team on there. But back in 2018, 2019, 170 players had some form of protection. In the past 6 seasons, so that'd be since then, it's gone up 44.1%. So you're seeing a pretty big increase in that. And I think, part of that to me, the reason that you have that, I'll send you the photo as I go here. I think a big reason is, you have your big name guys. Big name guys are going to get it. Like your stars are going to get it. The Hellebucks are going to get it. The McDavids are going to get it, right? Like, and that's fine. They want to know that, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here for a long time. You're investing in me. Put this on here. But I think for your mid-range contracts, it's a huge sweetener to not to try to convince players to stay for a little bit less money in a tough cap world. It just is. So here, and this would have been pre-summer. I sent you guys a list, but here it is here. Toronto had 14 at this time. Again, this is last year.
Okay.
Between of full no movement, and they had either full no movement or modified no trade.
Okay.
Seattle had 14 as well. Pittsburgh had 13. Detroit 12. Vegas 11. St. Louis 10. New York 10. Washington 9. New York, Dallas, Carolina, Calgary, Boston with 9. Winnipeg, Tampa, Columbus with 8. Edmonton was down at 7. Now that was pre-summer.
Yeah.
So that was before you had a couple guys sign this summer, but it's contracts are going that direction again because it provides certainty for players, and particularly for players that are potentially going to be or are UFAs. You're generally a little older. You're mid to late 20s. Probably for a lot of guys, they have families or are starting families, and they want certainty with where they're going to be. And so it's like, to me, rather than sitting, we're just handing those out like candy, the market is dictating that you hand them out like candy, I think, right now, because it's a way to separate, again, if team A is offering $3 million and team B is offering $3 million, but you can't afford from a cap standpoint to pay more than that $3 million, what are you going to do to entice the player to say, we're not going to trade you to Buffalo? Is a pretty big thing, right? Like it really is, like, because you don't want to play in Buffalo. They suck, and it's Buffalo. So like you can't harp on the team for handing them out like hotcakes when the market dictates that they be handed out like hotcakes. So I
could see,
I don't know,
Buffalo
it makes it more.
Well, Buffalo, I don't know why you'd have a no trade clause, I guess, but
in Buffalo,
guys are asking to not have them. In Buffalo, they're like, no, don't give me the no trade clause.
It's actually called that.
No trade clause. Yeah,
it's an activate a trade clause where, like, no matter what, they'll move on. You move on from it. Like,
I mean, Edmonton,
how about Edmonton mocking Buffalo? Classic.
I mean, I just think it was how it was presented last year was these guys want to come here, right? There shouldn't have been anything else to sweeten the pot to do this. They supposedly these guys came to win a Stanley Cup. That was, and I can see kind of the reasoning. Look, I don't want to get traded late and miss out on that opportunity. So I understand it that way, but I don't know. I think it's mismanagement. It's a mismanaged tool that GMs use early that looks good, and in the Oilers case has come back and bit them in the butt big time because they're handcuffed in what they can do now.
All right, 780-2189. Just looking at a list you sent over, it looks like, if I'm looking at it properly, full no movement clauses, Minnesota was leading with 7 at that time when that article was done, and that's where the Oilers have about 9 right now, or 8 full no moves. So right up where Minnesota was, a little bit higher than where Minnesota was.
Only 2 in
that
Buffalo
last year. What's that?
Only 2 in
just
Buffalo.
Just to clarify,
who are the crazy bastards that got a no move in Buffalo? Rasmus Dahlin?
I guess.
I wonder who else. I'll have to look that up.
It's a modified no trade and a no movement.
Go ahead, Cass.
Yeah. So the difference between, just in case people don't know, because there's like no movement clause is different than a no trade, which is different than a modified no trade. Right. A no movement means you can't be sent to the minors. Right. But a no trade clause, you could still be sent to the minors. Right. So no trade clause, you could still get sent down, stay inside the organization, but you could get sent down. A no movement means you cannot. You are in the NHL, and they cannot trade you anywhere unless you consent to it. The no trade clause means you can't be traded to another team. You could get sent to the minors. And a modified, there's different types of modified, but generally, there's a set number. You have to submit a list once a year of who you would be willing to get traded to, and it's a set number of teams on there. And so whether it's only 5 teams or whether it's 12 teams or whatever it is. So yeah, there's a couple different things, but just to clarify that. So the no movement is like the full stop, hammer time, you get to pick where you want to go sort of thing. The no trade is about the same, but you can still get buried in the minors which some guys don't want.
I'm looking at Buffalo here. There are no movement clauses on the Buffalo Sabres. There are Rasmus Dahlin has one that kicks in next year. So does, and Tage Thompson has a no trade that kicks in next year. There's 2 no trades. Alex Tuck has a 5-team no trade list. And then Jordan Greenway has an 8-team no trade list. But imagine like Tuck has a 5-team no trade list and you're in Buffalo. So there are like 5 places you're like, nope.
Wow.
Don't send me. And you know what? They're probably maybe Canadian spots.
Yeah.
Probably all Canadian teams.
Yeah, probably all Canadian teams.
Yeah, because he's American, right?
Yeah, but I think there's a tie-in to Edmonton with like his wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know what. I don't think it means anything, but pretty sure Tommy was telling me about that the other day. All right, 780-218-9999. This is something. This is quite the text, or it's a nasty chat. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. We're going to come back around to this Kane conversation in just a moment. We're 11 likes away from smashing through 100 here on Two Guys and a Goalie today. Ro Nelson over in the nasty chat says, Stuart Skinner has an NLMC. No lateral movement cause.
I think I had 2 of those, actually.
You guys are savage today. Like, absolutely savage. Dude's not even starting tonight. Come on. 780-218-9999. All right, you know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of opening up an email at some point in like the next 3 weeks and seeing Evander Kane files grievance against Oilers for saying that he's not healthy to play and he's ready to go. Like, you definitely don't want to see that. Rashad on our show yesterday said full court press to try to move Evander Kane. Cass, what do you think the market would be like for? It's Evander Kane and he's had some good stretches, but he hasn't played in a year and it's $5 million. Like, do you think it's possible to find a taker for this guy, even with the sweetening of the pot?
Maybe Buffalo.
I guarantee Buffalo is not on the list of teams.
No, it's not. It's got to be one that he wants to win. The market's going to be thin. It will be thin. That's where it's going to be so difficult to actually move him. I think you'd like to, you'd want to, you're going to try to, but I don't know if they're able to get it done. Like it's just there's not going to be a lot of teams with the cap space. There's not going to be a lot of teams that are looking at it saying, we want this guy when he's just coming off of, major surgeries and hasn't played all year. I don't see it happening, guys. I think you try to make it, which may hamper your ability to bring in a defenseman, which is why, I would not be shocked if you see that grievance email at some point, Dusty. It's probably going to happen.
You honestly think there's a chance that?
I think there's a chance.
Oh, boy.
Of course there is.
That gets
I think
messy.
There's a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, maybe they've got the cards really close to the vest but from what the little cracks you hear, why wouldn't they just say, he won't be ready till the start of playoffs?
Well, they would probably say that, but if Evander Kane's like, no, I am ready. Like, let's go.
I'm good to go. Game 82. Get a couple quick shifts in.
And that was the point. I started to think he wasn't a team guy. Like that would, if that happens, that would be the situation on that front.
You need Jeff Gillooly to stand outside his house, and as soon as he comes out, just take the metal pipe.
You're not ready until April 18th, man. Like, don't worry about it. Now, here's the thing. So they go out and get Frederick. If they just keep Kane and he comes back and he plays in the regular season, plays in the playoffs, that's the top 6 forward you're hoping you can find. Cass, maybe all they have left to do here is acquire a 4/5 defenseman, and that's going to be it. And they just hope that Kane is healthy when he says he's going to be healthy and he can make an impact.
But how do you do that? So acquire that D.
Why do you always ask the hard questions, Cass? I don't know. I don't know how they're supposed to do it.
You turn the GM mode off for a second, you get it done and turn it back on.
Here, let me throw this at you. And unless there's a secret no move that I haven't seen, Klingberg makes 1.7. Kapanen makes $1 million. I mean, there's $2.7 million you can move out the door. So if you move those two guys out the door the other way, 2.7 mil. And you have a team, let's say there's a $5 million defenseman and you give them a first-round pick to retain half of it, there's your defenseman. They have very limited options, but that would be something that maybe you could do, right? Like, there's got to be a way.
Maybe. But
got to be a way.
But who which team is going to do that has a defenseman that you want available?
Yeah, you made a good
Murphy in
point.
Chicago, maybe.
Yeah. Weren't you making the point this morning, Dusty, that there's too many teams that are close,
way too many teams that are close,
and they're just not willing to part with those players because they could be the difference.
Well, for example, let me just bring this up here. We'll just continue with Nate Trade Watch. This is one of the questions from Keeper Clip, which we might be too busy to get to here, but the Habs should sell. So people are like, oh, the Habs, keep everybody. They just signed Jake Evans, so they've got Evans. The other three bodies who are UFAs are Joel Armia, Christian Dvorak, and David Savard. So if you're Montreal and you can get 3 or 4 draft picks for those 3 guys, or keep those 3 guys, but I mean they're not your core.
Yeah,
like you're still keeping pretty much all of your significant pieces. Would you, if you're Montreal, for example, you're looking at this full group and there's like 4 or 5 teams who are like, we're making the playoffs, we're not selling. And you're sitting there going, well, you know what? With our guys, if nobody else is selling anybody, we could probably get 2 seconds and a third here somewhere along the way. Would you pull the shoot, knowing that like you've still got the rest of like the core, like your key guys, to continue to try to make a push to the playoffs? Or would you just say, no, screw it, man? We need to, like, I like the Evans signing. I thought Evans was the one that they should try to keep out of those guys. So they got him. Do you sell the other 3 guys now, or do you just try to stay in this battle that's only 2 teams are going to win?
So hard because, it's been years, not too many, I guess, since the playoffs, just to give the fan base some hope. Like, I swear what is that? Those rebuilding things are a curse. Those shows that these teams do. But yeah, I think I look for some more picks.
You think so?
Yeah. Because what are you going to do?
That's what I would do. Cass, what would you do? With Savard,
what are you going to do in the
Dvorak,
playoffs
Armia? Like these aren't younger guys. Like, I don't know. I think I think
you move on.
Yeah.
I think you move on if you're Montreal. I think you move on. That would make the most sense to me. Yeah.
Dvorak's 29. He's got 20 points in 61 games. He's minus 11. You're going to keep him around for a push? Or if somebody's willing to give you a pick for him, I think you take the pick.
Yeah.
So we'll see what ends up happening with some of these guys, and if they end up making. Coyote Steve says, "Hey Dusty, what about Bouchard and Kane for Savard and Josh Anderson?" Thanks for the text off. There's no way. People are still talking about Josh Anderson. Right?
That's the first time I've heard Josh Anderson's name actually this year.
In quite a while. Yeah. Well, that's a positive, I guess, that we're kind of getting to that spot. All right, Gager. Look, I know I feel bad. Where's Hernan? He's sitting around out there somewhere. So what do you think of Pickard starting tonight?
I hate it.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
Yeah.
You're a pretty spicy boy over this one.
I don't like it. It's not the guy.
And you were him.
I was him.
You were him.
But this is what I don't get. I don't understand. Everyone goes crazy about Pickard after playing a game and doing his job. He did his job. He allowed his team to stay in a game and gave them a chance to win. That's what you want as a backup. It's a hard job to do. I understand that. But Stuart Skinner's your number 1 guy. You got to roll with him.
Is this not more about Skinner not doing his job lately, though?
Well,
do you think you
got to figure it out soon, or trade and get someone else. But I don't think that's going to happen because you can't. You don't have the cap space. Stuart Skinner has to be your guy by game 83. And I know people were all over me saying, and I think, and I'm sorry, I love Struddy, right? But he was a defenseman, right? He broke the backs of the goalies that were behind him to carve out his career.
Catching strays over here today.
But he from what I gather, he had mentioned that Stuart Skinner needs to practice. I'm like, stop it. You don't gain confidence and get your game back by practicing alone. You get your game back by getting in real type game situations and performing at the level that you should get at and building from there, just like we see with a lot of other goalies. Stuart Skinner needs to play. I don't like the whole thing that you and Cass and I talked about at the beginning of the year. How are we going to manage Stuart Skinner's minutes so he's fresh? Look, he's fresh. He's fresh as a daisy. Get the guy in, get him rolling so when game 83 rolls around, he's ready to go. Enough. Once in a while, throw the pick in. But you're living and dying with Stuart Skinner here. Time to make a decision. Because I just don't think.
Maybe they have made their decision, though.
Well, Do you really think that Calvin Pickard can go through 4 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs and win?
No, I mean he's a battler. But,
yeah, but and you know what? You'll probably see him in the playoffs at some point because every goalie goes through a rough patch in the Stanley Cup playoffs where you see the other guy. It's going to happen, and he's proven that it's a great option to go to. It's an arrow in the quiver, but. To be successful, Stuart Skinner has to get his game to a level where we've seen him get to at the past and be talked about to be the MVP of the playoffs by the end of it, or the Edmonton Oilers are not winning a Stanley Cup.
So, Cass, who do you think should have started tonight?
I think Pickard.
Oh, yeah. You would.
I would.
Yeah, but you were the goalie. You were a forward. Come on. I mean,
and this is my thought process on this, which is different than Gager's, and it's reasonable and fair, and I understand where he's coming from. But I'm looking at this going, if you give Stuart Skinner the day off today and play him then on Thursday, you've now given him a good chunk of the practice time of not playing games in a row, like where there's a little spread now where he got to do that, and to me it makes sense. It's Anaheim, and yes, Anaheim's been playing better recently. I think they're 7-2 and something. 7-2.
Well, no, they've lost like 3 of their last 4, but before that, they had a good little stretch.
They had a good little stretch. Okay, but still, like a bottom end team in the NHL. I'm kind of going. You get some consecutive days of practice where you can get extra work in with Stuart Skinner, and I'm for that. I am. It makes sense to me. And then you can play Stuart Skinner against the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday and then run him back again against Dallas on Saturday. So I agree with Gager in that you don't want to turn it into a 1A, 1B competition that so many people, looking at you, Chief Andy, want to see in the nasty chat.
Targeting Chief Andy.
Well, hey, Chief Andy.
You can't get away from Chief Andy because Chief Andy's a big post-game guy, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
No, he's a huge post-game guy. And I love it. I love it. I love it, by the way. It's awesome. So, but there are people that, think it's 1A, 1B. I don't think that. But I do think for Stuart Skinner, this is probably the best approach to take. You want to keep him in the mindset of being the number one guy. At the same time, you do want to challenge him at times, and you want the guy to get in practice time. So I don't know. It's Anaheim. It's Anaheim. So I'm not. I don't know. I think Pickard's the right choice.
Gager, do you have time for Pickard tonight? Skinner against Montreal. Whoever plays better gets Dallas.
No,
No, I didn't think so. I was just trying.
I know you're trying to
throwing it out there.
Little gasoline, a little spark. No.
Just seeing.
Skinner has to roll here. Give him the ball.
McDavid get 2 points tonight?
He gets 3.
3 points tonight.
Oh yeah, I told you he's got home skipped meals now.
He's due for a
he's
big
back
one
home,
here, man. Like
he's happy. Everything's probably melted. Not that it didn't need to because of the heated driveway. He's ready to roll.
When was the last time McDavid had a 3-point game? Let's see. A month ago today against St. Louis.
Yeah, he's due.
He's had 3 since the calendar turned to January. So I think he hasn't had a 3-point game for a month. It's time. It's time for a 3-point game tonight against the Ducks. Pre-game show will get rolling here at 6:00. What do you got coming up on EST afternoons?
Obviously, we'll talk a little bit about tonight's game. We'll trade watch segment that we'll get into. We're going to. I don't know if you know about the F1 league there we were starting up with.
I've heard about this.
Okay, so we're going to dive into some of the resumes of listeners that have sent them in. I got a full presentation of why someone should be part of our F1 league.
Really?
Oh boy.
Yeah, PowerPoint.
Come on.
Yeah, and it's
You're gonna
well
give him
done.
a spot?
We'll see. We'll have to.
So what is it? This you and Hernan and 10 listeners or something, or what?
No, you're in it.
Oh, it's our league, like the Cass's league. And stuff.
Good thing Dusty listens around here. It's their boss.
A busy boy.
Everyone here is in it, but there's only 2 more spots available.
Okay.
I put it out to the listeners that if you want to take part in this year's F1 Fantasy League at EST,
so
send
there's
me
only
your
2
resumes.
spots.
There's only 2 spots.
Wow, and one guy did a PowerPoint. So
It's
really, there
it's
might only
looking
be
good.
one
There's
spot.
Well, we'll see.
So is this a new league or is it a continuation of the other league?
Continuation of of last.
Okay.
So
All right.
actually, I'll bring out the trophy today. That's
Good.
proudly
All right.
displayed in my office.
Well, good show coming out. Obviously, more Trent Frederick discussion.
And Derek Lee from the Hockey News, and of course, T-Up Reed Show.
All right, perfect. Reed Wilkins Show will follow that from 3 to 6 today, and then the GCL Diesel pregame show. Cass, are you on pre and post tonight?
I'm on pre and post tonight. Yes, sir.
There we go. So Cass will be back with Tommy on the GCL Diesel pre and post game show with Tommy, Hernan, and Cass. Busy day here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Hammer that thumbs up before you take off. Stick around. EST Afternoons is coming up next. Turn on autoplay on YouTube, and it'll take you right on over as the conversation certainly continues. And if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, we'll have stick around. The EST Afternoons live on all those streams, all those platforms at 1 o'clock. For Kassian Gager, I am Dusty. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock on The Nielson Show.